Morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for making the Herculean effort of getting up super early in the freezing cold with train strikes. You've made it. So you are the special ones. Thank you so much. We've also got some people joining us online. 38 at the moment. Hello, everyone online. Good to see you. That number will sort of steadily creep up, I think, as we get into the proceedings. My name's Sarah Lethbridge. I'm the Pro Dean of External Engagement here in the Business School. That means that I look after all of our outward-facing activities as a school. We're very passionate about our public value strategy, which means that we care as much about delivering social value and responsible business as we do delivering economic value. So these sort of sessions are really important for us because it's so great for the outside world to come and learn about our research, and vice versa for us to learn about all of the important work that you're doing as well. So any questions, give me a shout. Or John, there you go, John, our business manager, and we want to hear from you because connecting with our business community is exceptionally important. So, really pleased. We're going to solve this today. Do you think we're going to solve it? We're going to solve it. What does it take to be a 21st century public servant? So thank you so much, Paul. Over 35 years of experience of public service. So if you don't know what you're talking about, I don't know who does. And Lisa Knight-Davis and Owen Wills, please take some time to introduce yourselves as we go through the session this morning. But we'd be really pleased to hear their perspectives on this really important topic. Because, you know, one thing's for certain, the world's in a bit of turmoil right now, and we're facing all sorts of desperate challenges. So it'd be really great to hear what you've got to say. Speech to text captioning is available for this event. I think you can either press the show captions button on Zoom, or Angharad in the background is going to post a link. So that's really useful. Full transcript of what's happening today and helps people to follow the discussion. Bit of a flag for our upcoming events. We're planning a session quite early for us in January, isn't it, John? 17th of January, the business benefits of giving to charity. So all of the wonderful things that can happen when you associate with charities. There's financial reasons to do that. But there's also so many reasons around ESR, corporate social responsibility, and Admiral are going to talk to us about their approach to this important topic. And also then the next breakfast briefing, we're probably not going to do one in February because of the short months, and one in January and one very early March. We're going to be focusing with our careers service on recruiting international talent. So watch out for that one, because our business community, we've got some hot, intelligent students working for us that really they can produce all sorts of dynamism in your organisations. So find out how you can get involved with student placements at Cardiff University. So, bit of a flag for what we do in executive education. We really specialise in developing bespoke programmes of learning. I've got one at the moment with TAF Housing. We've got a programme with Ocado. So this is about understanding the expertise of the school, of the university, and designing programmes of knowledge transfer to help your organisation. So please let us know if there's any kind of request for a bespoke programme. And honestly, this programme is amazing. It's 90% funded by UK government. There's all sorts of mentoring opportunities built into this programme. Our Help to Grow initiative, we're really proud to be one of the Help to Grow delivering universities. It's such a fantastic programme. Please contact Linda to find out more if your business wants to benefit from this amazing opportunity. Yeah, this event is being recorded, as you heard. Please, people online, how many have we got so far? 45 people online. Don't be scared to say who you are in the chat. Send your questions through the chat function. We really want to hear your perspectives. So that's it, really. I'm going to hand over to you. I think, Paul, are you going first? Is that right?
I think so.
To hear what we need to do in these times of huge pressure and the sort of public servants that we need to engender and nurture and create within Wales. So thanks very much, Paul.
Good morning, everybody. If you're watching online, I'm sat looking at a room, stuffing their faces with croissants, drinking coffee, and I'm thinking I'm on the wrong side of this camera, actually. But good morning, everybody. It's nice to have the opportunity to talk to you. We haven't got a huge amount of time. What you'll experience this morning is the Monmouthshire approach, which is we travel light. We're pretty self-contained. We're pretty low maintenance, and I think we're going to share with you some personal lived experience and some articulations of what we think we're fighting for. This is not the school of pessimism. If you're looking for pessimism, find another Teams link, go to another Zoom meeting, join another room. This is not us, because I think the title of the session, Sarah, is 21st Century Public Servant, but we have to reflect on the fact that we're already in 2022. We're a quarter of a way through this century. So if we're really thinking about public service, we need to be scanning forward. We need to be asking ourselves minimally 2030. We need to be interested in 2050. Some of us, many of us, will still be in service at that point in time. So what are we looking to create? What's the environment within which we're looking to work? What's the contextual array that we're looking to read? I say that deliberately in my opening remarks, because the temptation, and I see it all of the time, is to hunker down. Life's busy, isn't it? Life's contested. Sarah was right in her introduction. We're in a world of flux. Public service was born in a world of flux. We weren't created for easy times. We weren't created for things that many others were already doing. So actually, I think it's really quite important at the minute that we remind ourselves that to be a public servant is an honor. To be a public servant requires genius. It requires commitment. It requires an absolute desire to hurt yourself for others, because that's what we do. We're always about the other. So as we look forward, it's worth reminding ourselves that in challenging times, that's when we're meant to be at our best. That's when we're meant to be investing in ourselves. That's when we're meant to be holding our love of curiosity and what the world can be. I hope that makes some sort of sense, because it will give you a feel of where we locate ourselves. It will give you a feel of our why, what we're fighting for. Any organization, any public servant, any team looking to craft a future, in my view, needs to be nailed on in terms of their purpose. If we're not sure what we're fighting for, if we're not clear on what today, tomorrow, and the day after looks like, what hope have we for the year, the 5 years, the 10 years down the trail? And I too often come across organizations that when you ask them to articulate what their purpose is, they can't really. They'll talk to you about a vision. They'll talk to you about a mission. You spend a little while in an organization, you'll hear multiple visions, you'll hear multiple missions. We've always taken the view in our organization that visions and missions are not things that we need. Our mothers, our fathers don't necessarily understand that language, but they do understand purpose. They do understand what it really means when you're acting on purpose, when you're committed to purpose. So in these challenging times, the need for clarity, the need for whole organization legitimacy, and the ability to talk to 16-year-olds, 34-year-olds, 72-year-olds, 104-year-olds in terms of what you're fighting to be, the ability to talk to epistemic communities, geographical communities, political communities, absolutely key. We do exist in quite a complex space, but that's no reason that our language needs to be complex. That's no reason that we need to be overly complicated. So we, or I should say I, at the moment, I'm actually quite optimistic about what the future looks like. I'm not sure whether that means that I'm just silly or naive, but I choose to be an optimist. I choose to believe that we can do better. And to use one sporting analogy for the morning, I've always been a person that loves a broken field. You can make ground in a broken field. You can try things more quickly. You can find space. You can find the edges. I'm not good. I've never been good in a land which requires compliance. I've never been good, particularly at taking instruction. I've always been interested in perspectives. So when I ask myself about the sorts of individuals that I'm looking to work with at the moment, the sorts of individuals that I'm looking to bring to my organization, the sorts of people that I'm looking to work with on a global level, I'm looking for people that have maintained a love of curiosity. I'm interested in people that aren't sure, but they're willing to explore. I'm interested in people that recognize orthodoxy, but are willing to stand aside from orthodoxy. I'm interested in people that are hunting best practice, whilst at the same time recognizing that best practice was probably invented in another time. So it may not be where we need to be right now. It certainly won't be where we need to be tomorrow. So when I'm thinking about the future of the sorts of organizations that I have the joy, the honor of being a part of, I am asking myself about how you design these pictures, how you create a narrative which is compelling. But for me, public service from my first day has always been a contact sport. You know, it's not something that you can sit aside and sit back, watch and observe. The best public servants, I think, are street workers. They're people that enjoy being out with other people. They're very human. They have characteristics that you would enjoy spending time with. They are empathetic rather than sympathetic. They're always looking to listen. They're keen to listen. They want to understand other people's stories. They recognize that qualitative lived experience is as important, not always more important, but certainly as important as theories, texts, speeches, words from on high, policy positions. So great public servants, they're really, really good in spaces which are contested. And that's certainly where we live at the moment. You know, space has to be earned. Contests are good things. And we, or I should say I, really, really enjoy that sort of space. There are people that I'm talking to right now, either in this room or virtually, that probably didn't expect to be working when they were 70 or 80 years of age. Some of us will be. The social contract of the United Kingdom is changing, isn't it? That's the reality. How do we design organizations that make that a joy? How do we design organizations that encourage 16-year-olds to come towards public service? The very, very brightest 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 24-year-olds, 39-year-olds. Am I making my point? Public service, future public servants. We should not just think about people in school and universities today. The vast majority of public servants who will design and build the next 30, 40 years are already in service. But potentially, they're not in service with the skills, the techniques, the attitudes that give us the best chance of being vibrant in 2050, relevant and vibrant. So I am open-minded. I am a tad concerned about the development programs that we have for our people, whether we're working hard enough to encourage our people to be absolutely flexible. And I guess Lisa's more equipped than me to talk to some of the conversations that we have about portfolio careers, because we have a different take, I think, in terms of what a portfolio career could look like in public service over the course of the next 10, 20, 30 years. So there's a lot out there to fight for. There's a big, rich picture. But contestability is good. There is space, there is opportunity. And we have, I think, the most amazing colleague base within public service in Wales and the United Kingdom at this moment in time. I don't think we have one public service, as I often hear others talk to. When you have about 15 or 20 different pay negotiations with 15 or 20 different sets of professions within a public service, it's difficult to describe one public service, isn't it? But we do have some amazing people with some amazing conviction that have demonstrated time and time and time again that when the chips are down, they come to the fore. We have a public service full of bravery. We have a public service full of courage. We have incredibly bright individuals that could earn a shed load more money than they do now. They could have a much, much easier life than they do now, but they choose not to. They choose to be public servants. They choose to be vocational public servants with an absolute calling. So people like me, in a position such as mine, I think I've got the most, I feel so honored to have the position that I have. I feel so lucky to have the opportunity to have some influence in some way, in some really difficult sort of policy challenges. And I feel an absolute, I do actually feel honored to be able to see the difference that can be made in lives for people that will struggle and are struggling at this moment in time. But to keep that difference, to drive that difference, to ensure that it's positive, the leadership of public service needs to be positive. There needs to be an energy. There needs to be a creativity, because we will not attract the genius of today and tomorrow towards us if we're traveling by looking down at the ground, watching our toes, rather than looking out and seeing how big, vibrant the world is. What's on my mind probably more than anything else at the minute is the colleague base that I will have in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. I'm asking myself, what's my legacy? What is it that only I can do to make sure that the public service that I leave is stronger than the public service that I joined? I'm asking myself how I can create opportunities for people to stretch, how I can make sure that I have an organization that is capable of balancing the highest challenge with the highest support. I think we've learned that over time, elite performance, and we do aspire to be elite. Let's make no bones about it. Public services is not a second-class citizen to any sector of society. We should aspire to be absolutely elite. Everything I've learned, everything I've observed tells me that that comes down to balancing the highest challenge with the highest support. Too much challenge, you lose people. Too much support, I think that's what Woodstock was about, really. We're not into hippie communities. We're looking for really edgy practitioners that are encouraged to operate right at the edge of their knowledge, right at the edge of their sector experience. And I genuinely believe that we need organizations that are prepared to talk about failure, because we fail very, very often. We fail because we try. We have to be prepared, I think, to think about the environments that encourage that. Because my view is the next 10 to 15 years absolutely requires that dynamism, that creativity, that willingness to stretch yourself in a way that when you fall, we will all fall. People will encourage you to stand back up. There is a difference between making a mistake through trying your very, very best to just being a little bit lax and a little bit careless. I can even live with careless every now and again, but what I can't live with is people who aren't giving me everything that I believe they have. And that's not going to happen unless spaces are created. So in my input, because it's very, very limited, I'll end by probably saying that it took me 5 or 6 years as a chief executive. And I've been a chief executive in Monmouthshire County Council for 13 years now. I think I'm the longest serving chief executive probably in Wales now. There was a time that I was the youngest. I still don't think I'm the oldest. And I probably got another 20 years in me yet. But it took me a number of years to really work out what my job was. And then I did. And my job is quite straightforward when push comes to shove. Yes, I lead a large, complex organization. Yes, I love the area of Wales that I have the honour of working for. I work for the county of Monmouthshire. I'm employed by Monmouthshire County Council. There's a huge difference. I work for the citizenry of Monmouthshire, and active citizenry is a massive part of the future of our country. If we had longer, we could explore that. We may explore that out through questions. But what is it that I learned after 3 or 4 years? My job as a chief executive is so straightforward. It's all down to me to create the environment that enables other people to flourish. It's down to me to create the environment that enables that genius that I've mentioned 2 or 3 times to come to the fore. It's down to me to create an environment which pulls people towards a sector that I love, I believe in, and I think the country would be weaker for if it weren't flourishing. So people like me, we attract decent salaries, we attract a lot more money than other people in society, and with that comes a significant responsibility. It's a responsibility that we have to be able to stand the challenge of, and that responsibility is to leave strong institutions full of able, talented people that are really prepared to give it everything that they've got to help that individual somewhere in Wales, somewhere in the United Kingdom, somewhere in the world that needs support. They need a hand up, not necessarily a hand out. They need that encouragement to be the individual that they can be. They need that encouragement to exist as part of a family, a community, a street, a neighborhood, and make a contribution. You see, what I've learned is that organizations such as mine will never, ever be able to do what organizations like mine want to do. Organizations like mine need to get better at being in touch with the citizens and the communities that they serve. They need to be better at working with. They need to be better at being activators. They need to be better at being networkers. They need to be better at being enablers. I wasn't recruited. I looked at my job description a couple of weeks ago, and when I was recruited as a chief executive, it was so far off the job, it was unbelievable. I would love to review the job descriptions of chief executives that are being appointed today. I believe, I don't have any empirical evidence for this, and I'm sat in a university, so empirical evidence is important, but I reckon more of those job descriptions are probably closer to the one that I was recruited to than the job description that is necessary as we look forward to 2030. I wonder whether our recruitment processes are holding us back. I wonder whether we're recruiting the wrong sort of individuals for an environment born in 2010, 2015, rather than the right sort of individuals for an environment that 2030, 2050 is going to require. So for me, I suppose that's a little bit of my why. Chief executives, people who have the honor of a position like mine, they carry a responsibility to create sort of space, a genius to flourish. I'm sat here today with two individuals who I do consider, frankly, to be genii. They don't themselves, but I have the honor of sort of spending time with them, and I will pass to either Owen or Lisa. I think, Lisa, you're going to go next, aren't you?
Morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Knight-Davis. I'm 30 years plus in public service as well. And as Paul said, we could probably make a lot more money outside public service, but that's not what it's about. It's about delivering and enabling people to be the best they can. And it's all about the other. So money is not important in that. I have a pretty cool job title. It's Head of Organisation Culture Challenge, which enables me to live within pockets of the organisation, to understand how people feel, how they behave, what makes them tick, and if our organisation is supporting them to do that. I guess the biggest thing about me is it's about people. It's always about people, and that's whether that's members of our community or our colleagues. I'm part of a number of groups. So I'm part of a transformation group with the WLGA, and I'm part of the 21st Century Public Servant Group. And my frustrations are we're all trying to do the same thing, but we're all trying to do it individually. Our collective is far greater than our individual ability to deliver. So I think we need to break down some walls, barriers, and pool our resources and think, yeah, okay, let's move to a better Wales for the people we serve. That's important to me. What's equally important to me is our responsibility to prepare our colleagues for the future, for today, but also tomorrow. And how do we enable them to be the best they can, to deliver the best they can? That's really, really, really important to me. I think we talk about challenges a lot, and you know, there are a lot of challenges. There's challenges we know, there's challenges we don't know. But for me, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for us to adapt, to change, to be whatever we need to be, to whoever we need to be that for. So that's great. That's what we need to be ready for, to be nimble, to be flexible, to be agile. That adaptive leadership, that's okay. As leaders, we can do that, but actually, how do we prepare our colleagues for that style of leadership as well? So they know what to expect, and they know that that's a supportive model to enable them to move forward. So that's really, really important to me. It's important to me and the organisation that we're horizon scanning, that we're looking for those future trends, but we're not forgetting where we are today. And how do we bridge that gap between today and standing up services and saying, okay, we need to pause this now because we've moved into a different environment. That's not public service like it used to be. So how do we create mindsets of organizations, of individuals, to enable them to be comfortable in the uncertainty? And I know Paul doesn't like this. The only certainty is uncertainty. And that's okay, but actually we're conditioned, aren't we, when we're living in uncertain times, to feel a set of emotions. And those emotions aren't what are going to enable us to grow, to move forward. So that's really, really important to me. And that I'm competitive, but how do we lay our competitiveness aside that enables us to deliver a collective response, as opposed to I'm better than you, or I can deliver more than you? And, you know, we move away from that place where we're looking at, oh, we've done this number of whatever transactional things, to what's our strategic direction? What's our collective response to what needs to be done? I can talk to you about what I believe those behaviours, skills, expertise and knowledge are. That's Owen, so I won't do that. Paul has used loads of elements that I was going to talk about. But for me, it's all about that. Let's prepare people. Let's prepare people to be ready for that. But that doesn't stop at our colleagues, because in my mind's eye, we have to get to a place where we're moving from being a deliverer to an enabler. Now, that's not only our colleagues in our buildings, not buildings, that we have to prepare for that. That's our communities and the people that we serve, because they're used to us delivering that traditional method of public service. So how do we prepare for an enabler role and enable our communities, our young people, our global friends, that, you know, we just want the best. So how do we get to that place where we're being more than, and people want to be more than? So for me, adaptive leadership is the ultimate, which leads me nicely in, which I hope I pull back a little bit of time, Sarah, for you, to Owen, but we've got to swap mics.
Sorry, I think I missed introducing Owen. Owen Wilts, the Programme Manager of Infuse. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I'm not quite as old as my colleagues, so I'm only 26 years into public service, but public service gave me the opportunity to connect, to be values driven, and just talk to my intrinsic motivations completely. I've had an opportunity through Monmouthshire to really sit on the edge of some of the things that both of my colleagues have talked about, in terms of moving the relationship of the organisation from where it was to a much more cohesive relationship with our communities. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is something that both Paul and Lisa have talked about in terms of how. So how do we prepare public servants for the future? Now, in Monmouthshire 10 years ago, there was an entrepreneurship programme where we started to really explore innovation, the skills, the tools, the knowledge and the attitudes required to deliver public service in the way that we believed as an organisation our communities needed to respond to that varying and let's be honest, complex need. I lead a programme called Infuse, Innovative Future Services. For 2 years, we've been investing specifically in aspiring and current leaders across the Cardiff Capital region within public service, with a few third sector friends added in. We deliver that programme with Cardiff University and Nesta, an innovation foundation. Lisa talked about cohesion and collective response. We've worked with the 10 local authorities across that region, other public and third sector bodies, because we know some of those societal challenges which we've touched on today don't just sit with the local authority. We have many levers, and public service, I think, has many levers. We want to work with, and have done, curious, frustrated public servants who would like to explore. And perhaps I'll talk a little bit about how we've done that. Paul talked about failure. I think failure is really important. And through Infuse, we've created an environment, a safe environment for people to genuinely experiment. And when you put experimentation and social services in the same sentence, people gasp, people take a sharp breath. This is people's lives. We've been able to demonstrate that you can. And when you give people the conditions that Paul talked about, the confidence, some skills and tools along the way, we can achieve great things. So we believe in Infuse that the investment in public servants is absolutely imperative. We're facing complex and difficult challenges. We should not face that alone. In Monmouthshire, we shouldn't be developing one solution to a problem which Rhondda Cynon Taf, Merthyr, Denbighshire are delivering exactly the same things. As public service, we tend to cover our homework, I found, until it's perfect. We like to develop things around innovation, but we like to catch them away until they're shiny and beautiful. What Infuse has done is opened that up. We have developed those things together. So in terms of the process, we focus on 2 key areas: accelerating decarbonisation, which you could argue is a huge focus for public services and us as citizens across the region and across Wales. We've also looked at building supportive communities. We understand that you could argue there's a revolution in terms of the way that public service, Lisa touched on that kind of enabling role, that catalyst. How do we really explore the assets within our communities? And by communities, I don't just mean individuals and geographical areas, business communities, third sector. How do we open that up? And I think bravery and honesty comes into that, asking great questions. So how do we be very honest in terms of the challenges that we face and we face together? So those are our two kind of themes. And we found through some research from some very clever colleagues of ours across public servants that there were a few things that were missing in terms of our skill set, our tools, and our knowledge. So we focus on adaptation. We've talked about adaptive leadership. Adaptation in terms of how do we genuinely define the problem before we jump to solutions? I've been guilty of that. I'm sure many people in this and the virtual room have found themselves developing solutions before we truly understood the challenge that we face. So some of those methods in terms of how we experiment in areas where bureaucracy and risk aversity can sometimes dominate. We move to data. So how do we ensure that the decisions that we collectively make here this afternoon are enabled by the data, not driven by it, but influenced? How do we pick that up? We use things like data action stories. So if only we knew X, we could do Y, which would lead to Z. So applying very simple tools to problems that you all face in your daily work. And we finish on strategic procurement with Dr. Jane Lynch, who sat at the back there. So we look at the £2 billion of collective public spend and how do we really invest that in a way that creates vibrant communities, economy, and business. There are a few things within public service that I think we found really important at Infuse. Leadership being one of those, and connection to leadership, strategic leadership. Paul's talked about the responsibility of his role, and this is a little idea which I can't take credit for because it was Paul's. But through Infuse, we give every individual who are engaged in those collaborative innovation experiments an hour a month for 3 months or more with their chief executive or senior leader. Reverse mentoring, many of you will have come across it before. But what that really does is gives those public servants the permission, the power, and also some inspiration, I suppose, for our senior leaders. It's an incredible relationship. That this was a prototype, is something that we've trialed for 2 years, is something that I would promote and champion anywhere, in any situation, in terms of breaking down those barriers. So that's reverse mentoring. Sales is my game. So I'm going to pause for the minute, and I'm going to allow you to hear from, if that's okay, a very short clip in terms of what we believe the difference is when you genuinely invest in public servants.
It's opened my eyes. It's opened my eyes to who's out there across the authorities, across the region. It's opened my eyes to ideas that have been generated through collaboration. I think, right, I can take that back and I can do that.
What I'm doing for the experiment is something that I wouldn't have been doing if it wasn't for Infuse. So I'm really challenging myself to use data before starting something and before starting the kind of community engagement. So that's something I'm learning to use, and find out what data the council currently hold.
The impacts things like carbon literacy can have going forward, it certainly gave me a greater drive to push the project, to work closer with colleagues in other departments. So, understanding that we can't deliver on a lot of this as individuals. It's very much a team effort.
The contacts with Infuse, the knowledge to the table that they're bringing, I'm finding that's having real sort of impact and transferability to my role in the council and to other potential avenues we could explore.
I think without Infuse, I'd probably be a lot less effective in my job because I'd just be falling back on the way other people have done things because that was the only examples I had. So the encouragement to actually do things in a new way has been really good.
The way that you're taught and the techniques and tools and methodologies that are used to sort of frame against problems and find solutions, invaluable, and take that back to the day job as well.
So there's one point that I just want to pull out of that video, which B delivered around. Those are the only examples that I've been given. So Infuse is very simple. Infuse is investing in public servants. It's creating a collision space where some of the sharpest minds from public service crash up against academia and innovation specialists. There will be other ways of investing in public servants. That's what we've chosen to deliver. I was taught you should always end on a call to action. So we'd like to invite everyone on the 16th of February between 9:30 and 11:30 to a facilitated session by Infuse to really take this conversation, this movement, if you like, around 21st century public servants forward. So that's the invite, that's the call to action. And that's it from us, Sarah. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Really fast. Thank you. Fascinating exploration of all of the things that are important about public service and how Monmouthshire in particular is really trying to use these challenges as opportunities. First question from me, then we'll go to the floor and to our online participants as well. In my life, I've had to battle for a few things when it comes to public service, and one, a hip operation for my mother-in-law seem very bounded by postcodes. Another incidence of trying to get special education support for a son, again, very bounded by postcodes. And I think it can be quite frustrating as a Welsh citizen when just where you live, you're prevented or prohibited from accessing services that other more wealthy counties or bigger counties are able to access. Can you give us some clues about how we can actually work more towards this one Wales, and it doesn't matter which street you live in, you're able to access the services that Wales is able to provide? What do you think we need to do as a nation? I'll go to you first, Paul.
It's a great question, actually, isn't it? Because we can have the biggest, brightest ideas for tomorrow, but if we're in pain today, our minds are somewhat preoccupied. And there is no doubt that we're a very, very small nation, aren't we? We're a tiny little, pick your word, principality, nation, country in a world that's getting faster every day and smaller every day. And the variety, the differences in offers are borderline unacceptable. I think both Lisa and Owen have spoken to the importance of sharing, learning, and being open enough to accept that what you're doing currently isn't perhaps as good as your neighbour. But equally, your neighbour might be New Zealand. You know, I'm very lucky that I've got neighbours in Powys, I've got Torfaen, I've got Newport, I've got South Gloucestershire, I've got Bristol. But do you know what? I'm sure they're amazing places. But they are amazing places. But so is Antwerp, so is Brussels, so is the. You know, my point is there is learning to be derived everywhere. And to answer your question directly, Sarah, my nervousness about, I'm a very proud, patriotic Welshman. You know, cards on the table. That's who I am. But I'm not myopic in any way, shape, or form. Leadership is about doing whatever you can to bring the best for people that are in your charge and in your care. And I'm not quite yet sure that as a nation, the sum of the parts is enough. I'm not quite sure yet that we're necessarily open enough to say, do you know what? I'm going to do what Anglesey does because they do it fantastically well. And just because I can't see them, it doesn't mean that they're not relevant. I think there is still too much of a temptation, and I understand it, but there is too much of a temptation sometimes to be worrying about the things that we can only see from the end of our street. And I think the challenge is bigger than that, isn't it? You know, if this country of ours is to achieve its potential, then we have to be prepared to take the best from wherever it's born. And we have to be prepared to adapt and apply it at speed. The evidence tells us that we're not at the moment. I think that's got more to do with mindset, curiosity, and interest in what's good than it's got to do with technical structures or policy positions. So I think that the answer to that sort of question, the big challenge comes down to your theme of the morning, really, which is as public servants, as a cadre of public servants, what do we really want? What do we really want for the people that we're charged with serving? It's not about principal-agent relationships. It's not about hiding in complexity. It's not about describing things as being complicated. Sometimes it's just about asking yourself the fundamentals. Am I prepared to change? Am I prepared to emulate as opposed to invent? And in my experience, often the best organizations are the best emulators rather than the best inventors. That's something that we continue to try to get better at.
Thank you. So that was sneaky of me, nicking the first question. Can I open it out to the floor? Oh, yeah. Hi, thanks. Sorry. Oh, yeah, please wait for a microphone so that people online can hear you.
Can the education sector do anything to better create these innovative leaders, or are we all doing a fantastic job? And I mean secondary schools, primary schools, as well as universities and further education.
Lisa, can I go to you?
My aspiration is that we start public service in primary schools leading on to secondary education. Sorry, my aspiration is that we start public service in primary schools leading on to secondary education. So everyone is a public servant, you know, which we aspire to be. So, and you have an aspiration to work and in public service, but that not stops at secondary education. That goes to universities as well. And, you know, are what we're teaching our future public servants at the moment fit for purpose for the future of public service? Absolutely. Primary, secondary, create
Do you
public
think
service.
the new curriculum is helping there?
I don't know. That's my honest answer. I just have an aspiration for.
Brilliant.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thanks. I think Rachel had a question.
Thanks, everyone. I really enjoyed that conversation. I was going to ask you about Future Generations Act and the wellbeing goals and the ways of working, because when I'm over the border, I can see a real envy of that framework and what it gives to Wales. But do you think that we're really capitalising on it to the extent that we might? It does give us license, perhaps, that other parts of the world, you know, don't currently have. It sets out, it provides a sort of set of values that I do think actually, you know, young people identify with those goals and aspirations. The ways of working, have they become embedded in Wales? Are they the right ways of working? Just your reflections on what Future Generations Act means for public service, public servants, and whether there are better ways that we can work with that in the future.
I'd like to take that one.
I'm happy to have a crack. I've got to put my hand up and say I'm a huge fan of the Wellbeing Future Generations Act. I was fortunate enough to know its main architect when he was with us, and I'm old enough to understand or remember with the genesis of that. I felt at the time that it had the potential to be an amazing piece of legislation if we chose to live it. It's very easy to write a piece. Well, it's not easy, but it's not difficult to write a piece of legislation. But to actually bring it to life, use it as a flag and plant it that we rally to is a very different thing. And the first occupier of the position of Future Generations Commissioner, I think, has done an absolutely amazing job of taking this act, this legislation, this way of being, this thought process to the world, and the world's enjoyed hearing about it. So Rachel, I agree with you. I think it's fundamental. I'm less concerned about whether people could to describe the 5 and the 7 and visualize the pretty table. I've never cared about that. What I've cared about is that decision makers are asking themselves some quite profound questions when they're at key points. You know, and really are they thinking about the impact of what they're about to do in a plural sense. And I think there is genuinely jealousy and envy in many parts of the world that we have this framework. Is it where we need it to be? No. Will it ever be where we need it to be? No. Am I glad we've got it? Fundamentally, yes. It's changed the way that I've led an organization. I think it's changed the nature of the conversations that I've tried to have with colleagues. And I guess my sort of concluding point, because I'm conscious of time, is I think the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act really encourages us. You know, people don't tend to use this language, so I'm introducing it for you. I think it really encourages us to treat every public servant as an adult. We don't employ children, we only employ adults. So we should expect people to behave as adults, and they should expect to be treated as adults. Every adult that I've ever worked with has been a part of a family, a community, a network of care, a network of love, or a network of loss. I don't meet them as an employee, I meet them as a person. When they're at their best, we know them as a rounded person. We know where they're at, We know their worries, their anxieties, their strengths. And I think the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act was crafted to live in exactly the same space at a societal level as that narrative that I've just offered you at the level of personal. So I think it's got emotional connectivity. And too often I sit in halls and I listen to people talking, and they're talking pragmatically, they're talking logically, they're talking theoretically. One of the things that I've learned, probably the most powerful thing that I've learned, is if you want to change, if you want to change things for the better, you change at a level of emotion. You engage people in a very different space. It's about what beats there. It's about what works there. And you can't extract those if you're looking to create an inclusive movement. And I think the architects, the principal architect of the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act, really understood that and embedded it. So I think it's having a really quite a profound impact on the way the public service does its business in Wales. There is a lot more it can do. There is a lot further to go, but we're on the journey and others aren't. So yeah, when I'm thinking and when I'm describing the legislative framework of Wales, when I travel nationally and internationally, I do interesting, I probably spend more of my time these days out of Wales learning and thinking than I do within Wales. I always describe the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act as our core piece of architecture. There are a myriad of other sort of policies and positions that we have, but for me, that's the absolute epicenter. So I think it has impacted and will continue to do so.
Well, thank you. Any questions from online? I don't know if you want to just put your hands up or open your microphone. Come on online, we don't want to forget about you.
Go on, I'll ask a question.
Yeah, go on, Gareth, thank you.
Hi. Yeah, Gareth Walters, Trading Standards in Monmouthshire. So Paul, Owen and Lisa will be more than aware of myself. Often, when we look to change things, we're doing it in Monmouthshire. We're empowered, we move things forward, we make a difference, but that really does need to be on a Wales basis. I work closely with colleagues across Wales, but constantly you're having a battle that they don't have the same level of permission, and it's often easy for them to hide behind the fact, oh, my authority won't do that, or we can't. How do we get around this? Is it a conversation that we have to have through the WLGA with members? Is it a solace conversation? I'm sure Paul has this conversation elsewhere, but it's just, I think, is there a way that rather than the ones on the ground trying to push it from the bottom, that we can have a more inclusive approach?
Lisa?
Yeah, hi Gareth. I think there is a more strategic conversation to be had that we're trying to have. But from a transactional perspective, I'm currently working with 22 authorities that are all applying the same response to the same problem. You've got to take into account that we have different subcultures and demographics and so on and so forth, but to be more effective and more efficient, if we approach that way first, I'm hoping that creates a nudge behavior that has a ripple effect that demonstrates a normative experience to move to an even greater strategic response. So I don't know if anybody else, or we're short of time.
Yeah, thank you. Owen, anything to add?
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Can I give it 20 while they're changing?
Yeah, please.
Gareth, I was going to describe you as current head of trading standards, but the question was fine, so you can stay.
No fear, cultures of no fear.
The point is a good one. I think the point is about organizational design. Forget the Monmouthshire sort of badge. I'm not sure that's mattered really. I'm not a big fan of the word empower because it implies that somebody's got to give you power. Agency is something that we're born with. It's whether we have the confidence to actually apply it. So actually what we should be focusing on is giving people confidence. I've met very few politicians in my career so far that don't want positive change. I think lazy officers sometimes use, the politicians would never think of it as an excuse not to try it. I think it comes down to designing organizations so that people have agency, freedom, trust. Then I think magic happens. I think if we have a problem, we start by asking ourselves, what's the contribution that we can make to that problem, rather than looking for a third party or another agency which denies us the space to act. I think it's a really good question, Gareth. I think it comes down to space, freedom, trust, and confidence.
Knowing, I suppose, how senior are the people that come on the Infuse program? Are you looking for more senior people to get involved?
Yeah, so we've got on the program currently everyone from a chief executive officer to graduates on the program, and I think, Gareth, we've certainly had a go at this as a program. We believe culture is hugely important to innovation, change, and improvement. And I think I'll just add a couple to Paul's last. It's confidence, it's inspiration, and it's bravery. And if you can offer the first two to your colleagues with some support of others, and be very happy to share some of the tools and methods that we've approached this, then I think you get the third.
Sometimes it's having that confidence and bravery to stand out from the crowd, and then to trust that the movement will come around those individuals. So thanks so much, everyone. We've come to an end, I'm afraid. It's 9:30. I always like to finish our breakfast briefings right on the dot so everyone can get back to work. Oh, sorry. What would you like? Okay.
You mentioned about confidence. Surely it's a quid pro quo. It's not just what public servants can do. It's the other side, that they should be given the respect. They should not be undermined when a new minister comes in and immediately the head of the section, the head of the civil service, the head of that particular section of the civil service, who's most responsible, is elbowed out. Because if we are moving from the impartial, objective civil servants to the kind of civil service we have in the USA, then we will not have public servants who are full of confidence. They will be very nervous of what they can and can't do, how long they will remain in their job, whether their terms and conditions of employment will be changed. In order for that, you need to have a quid pro quo, and confidence seems to be a two-way street, I think.
Do we feel like that's a problem in Wales at the moment?
So I think you're talking specifically to the civil service, which is a core part of public service. So I think it's a fair question. I think the point raised is a good one. Boundaries, mutuality, respect, cornerstones, I think, of effective organizations. Public servants, public officials often live at the interface between the political world. And there's a skill set to that. But if mutuality, respect, appropriate behaviors aren't observed and they're not marshaled, then it's only a matter of time until an issue presents. In my experience, and it's a personal experience, and that's all I can talk from, it's my lived experience. I've been a chief executive now for 13 years. I've been around top tables of councils for probably close to 25 years. I've had the joy and privilege of being part of many ministerial working groups. I've worked closely with many ministers. And I've been involved in challenging conversations at times. I can't remember a time when I felt I've been a part of an inappropriate conversation. I can't remember when I felt threatened. But most importantly, as an official, I can't remember a time when I felt muted. I've always felt confident. If I've got something to say, I'll bloody well say it. It doesn't really bother me who's in the room. And I think, we don't exist in a perfect state, do we? Life is more complex than that. But I think in relative terms, based on my lived experience, there are many worse places to be than Wales at the moment. And I have a confidence in the political apparatus here. It can improve, but everything can improve. But I recognise your question. I recognise where it comes from. And if officials feel concerned, if they feel that they can't act with integrity, then the quality of public service delivery will go down quite rapidly. And yeah, well,
and in terms of the explosion in the numbers of providers and the relative distribution in importance.
Yeah, if I connect to your point quickly, because I know
Closing
Sarah wants to
comment,
end. If I come back to, I think, one of my core inputs this morning, which is about how do we assure ourselves that we have the genius of our nation contributing to public service, because I think it's the best job in the world. If we want, and if I limit my input to younger generations, if we want the very best 18 to 25-year-olds coming forward to take their place in public service, then we have to convince them that their inputs are going to be respected, and they will be respected as individuals. We also have to adjust our organizations so we meet them where they are. I'm increasingly seeing younger generations that don't want to do 37, 50 hours a week. They might want to give you their very best 16 hours, 6 months of the year, because they want to go skiing or they want to do something else. Organizations that I joined when I started my career weren't designed for that. They were designed to, you will fit into this cookie cutter and you will do X, Y, and Z. The organizations, the successful public service organizations of the future will be very, very different ecosystems that meet every individual where they are, and they individualize their offer. So I hope that somewhat talks to your point. I don't think we've got time to unpick UK civil service.
We're over 9:30. I failed. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, there still should be some coffee. Thanks for coming. Hope you have a lovely Christmas. Happy New Year as well, and hope to see you in our events in January. Thank you.